Okay, let's begin with exploring very controversial and questionable topic and try and understand what is this requirement of covering hair try to attain, what is it there for? And for most individuals, when they hear this law of a woman needing to cover her hair or a man needing to wearing a kippah, they don't see a connection. But we'll start off with the understanding of why a woman needs to cover her hair on a deeper Kabbalistic spiritual reason. The general understanding that one says that a woman covers her hair is for modesty reasons, but big questions arise. If it's for modesty reasons, we see that a sheitel is sometimes much less modest than a woman's hair in her natural state or its natural state. So I'm going to show you some sources. Together, we're going to see the deeper reasons behind covering hair. Now, we understand that if someone asked you, where is the source for having to cover one's hair in the Torah, is from the laws of a sota. So the laws of a sota is a woman who committed adultery or is suspected of committing adultery. It says that the process that she has to go through of clarification, one of those steps in the process is her hair is uncovered. Okay, and we learn from that a woman's hair needs to be covered. Korach and his followers, where the wife was sitting outside with her hair uncovered, but that's part of the midrash. That's not written clearly in the Torah. Okay, let's have a look. We're going to start off with a very controversial source. This is the Gemara. The Zohar in Nassau. I'm going to read it to you in English. Reb Hiskiah said, "Cursed be the man who allows his wife to let the hair of her head be seen. This is one of the rules of modesty in the house. A woman who exposes her hair for self-adornment brings poverty on her household, renders her children of no account in their generation, and causes an evil spirit to abide on her house. If this is so when the woman does this in the house, how much more is it when in the open road? And ever so much more so does all this result from other kinds of shamelessness." Gewalt. I mean, that's not a really, you don't want to publicize that type of source, eh? That's like a pretty intense, but every movie starts off with some explosion or some violence. We had to start off with something violent to keep you entertained and engaged. But we see here that a woman needs to cover her hair. And if she doesn't cover her hair, it brings poverty. It renders her children of no account in the generation, causes an evil spirit to abide in the house. And this is all about a woman in her own house. All the more so about a woman who goes out of her own house and doesn't cover her hair, God forbid. Yeah. So we are gonna have to taper all of this. All right. I'm building up a range of questions for you. If anyone comes, you just give them some of the sources. Hey. So what I'm doing here is I'm building up these questions for you. We're going to unpack what the practical halacha is. In fact, we're going to see the Shulchan Aruch just now. So the Shulchan Aruch says the following on the second page, second source. So the Shulchan Aruch says, "So'or shel isha shedarcha lachsois, the hair of a woman that is generally covered, asul likros kenegdo. You're not allowed to read anything holy in front of it. So you can't read the Shema, can't bench in front, can't say Kiddush in front of it." The Aruch HaShulchan has a whole debate about this and says in today's day and age that we're so frequently seeing these uncovered hair, then it is allowed today. But the Shulchan Aruch said it's not allowed. But women who are unmarried that walk in the streets, mutaris, that's allowed. So a woman who's not married is allowed to have her hair uncovered? And that's a really big question, gentlemen and lady that we have here, and the ladies that are online. If we're so perturbed, so perturbed, to the extent that, even the house, in the house, it is so unscrupulous for a woman to have her hair uncovered, to the extent that it will cause, God forbid, poverty, and her children will have no substance, and there'll be an evil spirit. All of these crazy things. How is it then, my friends, that an unmarried woman doesn't have to cover her hair? Make up your mind here. You want to tell me it's licentious, it's immoral, it's immodest? Well, then why, if a woman isn't married, is it perfectly acceptable? Where do you see something of that nature? Doesn't make any sense. You with me? Furthermore, the Ramah says here, there's this concept of women who would cover their hair, and sometimes they wouldn't be able to get all the little chupchikas under the place to cover it. He says that's allowed. The koshakain sar nachris, afila dark lachses. He says, and all the more so, to have a wig on your head, that's allowed. That's allowed. Now, why am I bringing you this? I'm bringing you this for an unbelievably controversial Mishnah Berurah that comes from this Shulchan Aruch. Check what the Mishnah Berurah speaks about. He's talking about the little strands of hair that come out from underneath the mitpachat, or underneath the little cover, little strands of hair, the chupchikas. So listen to what the Mishnah Berurah says, source number 3. Lot says, Beged hametzamtzem asar shalayetz l'chutz v'oisei mat shir shalitzamtzem yotzem atzamas azeh mekel rashba. So she would wear a hat, and then under the hat she would wear like a netting that would hold her hair, and a bit of the hair would come out from underneath the hat because she just can't. I mean, what do you want from her? What do you want from her? She's done her best. She's done her best, and there's like little strands of hair that are coming out. So the Rashba is lenient with this. But the Mishnah Berurah brings us our explosive Zohar that we started off with, and says, so the Zohar, Parshas Nasi, Hichmir Ma'oid Shelo Yisora Shum Sar Misha. Page 3. The Mishnah Berurah brings the Zohar that says not one strand of hair should be visible of a woman. Shegarma misknusa lebeisa. She causes danger. She causes danger to her house. The garma lebna delois chashvan. She makes it that her children should not have any importance. Bedara. The sitra achra lishrois bebeisa. I mean, the Mishnah Berurah really expands upon the words of the Zohar here very expressively, says that the sitra achra, the evil energy, dwells in her house. Now, what is this? Is this scaremongering? Do we know that people struggle with this? So we're going to chuck everything at them to make sure that they cover their hair? Oh, come on. I got you. It's important. I got you. All right? But come on, are we not being a little bit OCD here? Every strand in hair, you're going to freak out? It's going to cause the sitra achra. What's it got to do with the kids? Poor kids, what did they do wrong? What's happening here? And the kol shekain, this is all for a woman in her own house. We're talking about a lady that wears her sheitel, covers her hair. This is talking about a woman who uncovers her hair in her own home. No visitors, just her husband and kids. And already is it causing so much destructive energy. Even when she's completely alone at home. As it says here, all the more so if she's going into the marketplace, i.e. the waterfront. Kach alkein bai isa sadafilu koires beisa lo yachmun Sarah. They asked a woman, and this woman was very successful in raising her kids, and she had a lot of energy and a lot of blessing. And she said that even the walls of her home never saw her hair. Even one strand of her hair was never seen by the walls of her home. So that sounds, as you say, dear Gary, no one's at home, just the walls. Her and the walls, they're having a party, but she never shows her hair to the walls. Okay. So the Zohar, which we're going to see shortly, says that if you do such a thing, your children will be like the vineyards, or no, you don't call it vineyards, but the fields of olive trees. Your children will have status. What it means that they have status, we'll have to understand. You don't see this, okay? You do not see this by other mitzvahs. You don't see these admonishments, and you don't see these types of blessings. I mean, you maybe get close to, long life for Shiluach HaKain, where there are other things of sending away the mother bird, a few other blessings that you're told, but to have such clear terminology about the blessings and the curses, so much so that we conclude with the blessing, where it says her husband will be blessed, given blessings from above and below. I mean, what is the difference between blessings from above and below? So he's getting spiritual blessings, and he's also getting the manifestation of physical blessings. Bu'usra b'binyan of b'nei binyan bonin al-kad lashon. The kitzur, the roi linhoi kazar b'yoma, so the Mishnah Berurah ends off. This is the Chofetz Chaim. This is not some heavy duty here. This is just normal space. The Mishnah Berurah says it's fitting for a person to follow the Zohar. V'yoyma is v'maisa v'kimchis v'schusat tznius ha'yisteira shayitza b'shleira koretz beitza amri haluka yitz memena kohanim gedolim. So we have a woman whose name was Kimchis, from which the Kohanim and the Gedolim, the great Kohanim who would serve in the temple, came from. And she said it was all because of her sensitivity with covering her hair. Okay? That's real nice. But why? What's going on here? Okay, it's one thing to close shop here and say we've been taught and told of its immense importance. But why? So the Zohar here in the next source shows you exactly word for word where the Mishnah Berurah got this from. But I don't want you to look at the Zohar now. So I want you to turn to, if you can, source number 5. And you'll see the Zohar says something very unique that starts to give us some wisdom in understanding this immensely important halacha. The Zohar says here in the Idra Rabbah, source number 5. I'll read it for you in English just to keep you engaged. And in each and every strand of hair, there is a spring that flows from the concealed brain. It shines and travels through that strand, exiting to the hairs of Zer Anpin, which are the emotional energies. So again, what the Zohar is telling us, that your hair is not only when you say you're having a good hair day or a bad hair day, or whatever haircut you get. Jethro, what would you say your haircut is? It's a custom haircut. It's a custom. It's not like a buzz cut. Ezra, you're balding. Yes, okay, I hear. Please God should be, Reb Shalom, you've got like the natural hair, very, very pure, very nice. Yeah. So, these haircuts are important sensitivities. But not only do we have a good hair day in terms of the placement of one's hair, But a good hair day is going to mean a hell of a lot different for us today. Because what it's saying is that every strand of hair, according to Kabbalah, is a pipe system, a flow of energy that comes from the concealed brain, which means it's flowing out of your brain and it's entering into the world and affecting your emotional state. From this, the mind of Zeir Anpin is sustained or structured. Then that mind flows into 32 pathways. So we're not going to go, obviously, into all of these elements, but 32 we mentioned last week, actually 2 weeks last week when we spoke about tzitzis. The 32 pathways is Lamed Beis. Lamed Beis, we have also 32 strands of tzitzis, okay, which look like hair. But there are these expressions of energy into the world. All right. What we've gathered from here is that the hair that a person has, not only on their head, but in general, on your eyebrows, on your mustache, if you're at home, wherever the person is engaging with the space of hair, from a Kabbalistic standpoint, there's a flow of energy. You'll notice all of the parts of the body that has hair are parts that are expressions into the world, flow of energy into the world. Yes. You're asking about covering hair?
Yeah.
You're saying that the general perception of why women cover their hair is because it looks intimate and it's sexually arousing, and a person needs to cover it so they're not catalyzing that type of experience in others.
Yeah.
That's the general approach. But tonight, and in general, we're not happy or interested in general. We will want to understand the deeper meaning. And based on the questions that we've had, if it's about immodesty, then why a girl who isn't married, why doesn't she have to cover her hair? If you're telling me it's so immodest and it's so provocative.
Maybe she needs to.
Okay, but in the meantime, maybe she can cover her hair. You're not letting her walk around in other provocative ways, are you? If you're so bothered by the hair being a provocation of that individual, then cover it. Seemingly, there's no halacha around that. And if you're going to tell me it's an element of immodesty for a married woman, what's the big deal with the walls? I mean, when are you worried about the walls? Looking at your hair. There's a lot of contradictions around just simply looking at this from a general state of modesty of what we've been exposed to when we talk about modesty. And from the sources at our fingertips here, we are understanding that Judaism is worried and sensitive to flow of spiritual energy. Now, what is this going to mean for us? We're going to see just now. So look at the next Zohar, number 6, the Tanakh. Read it again for you in English. And it is taught from the hair of a person. It is known whether they are under the influence of judgment or mercy. Even when 40 years have passed over him, and even if he is still young, it is through his hair, in how it is arranged or styled on his head, his facial features, and around, it says her eyes, but it's his eyes, that this is recognized. So the placement and the structure of your hair, and this particular teaching from the Idra Rabbah goes through how to read a person, not from their facial expressions, but from their physical makeup. You can read a lot about a person from their face, from their ears, from their nose, from their mouth, and different placement and structure. But what the Idra Rabbah is talking about here is even a person's hair, the thickness of their hair, the placement of their hair, the way the hair flows is an indication of specific energy that is being expressed in the world. Unbelievable concept. What's this all got to do with women covering their hair? So what we have to understand before we go on to a recognition of where this applies for men is we know that there is an energy And there is a notion that anytime something is revealed and out in the open, it is susceptible to impurity. It's susceptible to the sitra achra. It's susceptible to negative energy. We're going to see that in the final verse and the final passage that I'm going to show you. But I'll give you an example. A person who falls pregnant, how many months do they wait until they reveal that they are pregnant? Generally 3 months. Now, why? Why do they do that? They don't want the evil eye. Yeah, they don't want the evil eye. Now, what we have here is that as soon as something is taken out into the open, it is now susceptible to negative energy. And what we are seeing here, according to Kabbalah, and we're going to see this shortly in the next third source I'm going to show you. We'll skip a few here. But a woman is the flow of energy and blessing into the home. She is the source. A woman is referred to in the Gemara as a besa, as the house. Not because she's doing the housework, because she is the flow of blessing into the house. And it's predominantly through her hair, which is the nexus of spiritual energy that comes into this world, that she is blessed and the house is blessed. Now, you don't want to go and flaunt what blessings are flowing in your life. There's many things that we keep close to our heart because we don't want negative energy. We don't want to put that out into the open. When a person flaunts this energy here for a woman who is the nexus of that flow of energy into the world, it is susceptible to all problematic meddling. And this is why, according to the deepest wisdom of Kabbalah, we see a woman needs to cover her hair. This answers all of the questions for us, because why is a woman who isn't married not needed to cover her hair? Well, she doesn't have a home yet for the blessing to flow through. Why is it that a woman in her own house, when no one's there to visit or see her hair, has to cover her hair? Because the flow of energy is constant through those strands. It's very similar. You see, I'm not sure you have many occasions to see, but if you have these high voltage power stations, there's fences around, it's closed off, it says warning, high voltage. You don't want to go in there and start messing around. Not only is it not good for you, it's not good for the city as well. Same too, when we are covering the hair of a woman, we're essentially saying high voltage. This energy flow is of an unbelievable proportion that you don't understand, and you have to recognize its flow. What it tells us about ourselves is a very, very interesting thing. What we learn from this is something I want you to start to marinate in and think about. But before we get there, just to take a little bit of a sidestep here. Yes, Gary, quick question.
If the flow of blessing comes via the hair,
or we see that the flow of energy into her home is when she's built a home with her husband, with her children. That is the flow of energy that we're talking about here.
Where is the
The energy that's coming into her home is from her mother. From her mother. Even if she doesn't live there, there's a flow of energy from her mother. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's where you see it, because, well, that's a very good question. And essentially, you want to understand that if children are going to need to receive some blessing. But what we see is there's a unique relationship between the masculine energy and the feminine energy. And there is an interplay between these energies, which we're going to see how this relates to the masculine flow of energy. But it's predominantly through that nexus and through that unison that creates a very, very powerful electric energy. And that's when she has to cover her hair. So a woman who is divorced and is trying to get married, we see, according to these opinions, doesn't need to cover her hair because she doesn't have that vitality of flow between husband and wife. I'm not sure if that answers your question. Good question. I'm not sure. Yeah, how far does it go? Does it stop? Listen, there's obvious effects of energy flow in a home where the husband and the wife are not together. And sometimes those are scenarios that need to be addressed, and those are scenarios that need to be, because that flow is going to be better in whatever respects it is in that state. But it's clear that it's not the same flow of energy in that home. Where does it go to? Where does it revert to? How does it work? Those are, obvious questions that need to be explored, but I don't have answers for you. Let's ask one more question because I want to, The sources. Oh, the people online would love the sources. Sorry, everyone online. Let me send those sources to you. Okay, the sources have been sent. Let's carry on. What we're going to now deal with is another relationship to hair, but this is for men. Now, what relationships do men have with hair? So one of the big relationships that men have to hair is their sideburns, what we refer to as the payas. Now, it's for some reason a very, very fashionable thing to completely shave off this entire area. That's the trend. What's it called, Dina? You know what it's called? It's a buzz. No, they proper shave this. A mullet, a modern fade mullet, whatever they call it. But they've shaved this and they leave the rest. Now, what we're going to see is, according to Jewish law, a male has to be very sensitive around this area and very sensitive with their beard area. Okay, so this area in particular, we know that from the top of the ear coming forward here needs to be left. You can't shave this. So much so that you can't even cut it close with scissors to an extent that it doesn't exist. There needs to be some grabbable hair. Now, the extent of how grabbable is an argument. Most opinions say it's about 1.5, 1.7 in terms of its length that you can grab it. There are other more lenient opinions, but for sure you need to be able to grab the hair. Okay, that's a given. Now, the teaching of Rabbi Nosson here gives us a deeper insight. He says that it's a prohibition to cut one payas and a prohibition to cut one's hair on their face. Okay, now we understand that the hair on the face also has a prohibition of putting a razor onto the facial hair. Why? Now, if you look at the different opinions in the halachic perushim, the halachic opinions and explanations, they say it's got things to do with idolatry, it's got all these unique entities. But listen to what he says. These are the hairs closest to your face. This is a reference to the revelation of wisdom into your life. This is the flow of wisdom. Which flows through the hair. Now, listen to what hair is. He says hair is tzimtzum. Hair means there's energy that is being constricted into a pipe system that's flowing out. All hair is tzimtzum. And he says through hair, through the hair on your payas and the hair of your beard, an individual is able to come to a greater recognition and clarity of God. That's why it's prohibited to destroy the hair of one's unmarked. You're getting very excited here. I can see. You're going to go straight back to Vanessa. You're going to tell her, I learned now I can regrow my hair on my beard. And I see you starting to plait the beard with, and you'll have that little bead at the end. I think that's a good idea. I just want to say, I do think it's a good idea. The reason is because they're closest to the face and to the illuminance of the face. Etc., etc. What we're seeing here is, and he goes obviously into great depth. This is just an excerpt. Now, this is an understanding as to why men need to be very sensitive with their payas, okay, because this represents a flow of energy and the energy of their beard. If you look at the Ben Ish Chai, the Ben Ish Chai is very, very, very particular that even if a man will shave, ideally he should leave some stubble on his face because the flow of energy is necessary to come through his face. Okay, so what we're seeing again is a flow of energy. Now listen to a very nice synopsis of what modesty is and why it's got this relevance with hiding those areas. This is a teaching from the Igros Kodesh, and it says the following. This is from the Lubavitcher Rebbe. There are those that because of lack of knowledge in Torah in general, and in the matter of tznius in particular, think that the laws, takonos, and customs connected to tznius limit the Jewish woman. So they think that the whole process of modesty for a woman is to limit her, is to prevent her from expression, take from her her social rights or diminish her honor. All of this is based on an incorrect premise, the Rebbe says. The truth is the complete opposite. Our holy Torah and sages of blessed memory emphasize countless times the honor and glory of the Jewish woman and girl. The Torah puts femininity on a pedestal. Many takanos are established in a special way in order to protect and guard their honor and importance. In connection with this, not sure what that word is there, the known pasuk, Kol Kvoidoi Bas Melech Nima. We know that the honor of a woman who is a queen, a woman who is a princess, all of the king's daughter's glory is internal. Okay, so what we are seeing here is a vital insight into modesty. And I'm going to speak this out for a moment because you're going to see how it applies to men as well. The Torah describes the Jewish woman as honorable and a princess, the king's daughter, but demands that this be expressed in a way that is internal and sanua. So listen to this, and I heard this from my rabbi, Rav Berkovitz. Berkovitz explained that modesty is not there to mitigate a catalyst or to mitigate being catalyzed by sexual thoughts or experience. Modesty is there to protect the dignity of an individual. And just like you wouldn't see the prince or the princess walking around, with a revealed state, it would be immodest for them, but more than immodest, it would be undignified. You wouldn't see a Torah. I was once in a shul that they took the Torah and they sprawled it out onto the wall and connected it to the wall. They happened to put some plastic around it, a box made from plastic. But it was a Torah that wasn't kosher anymore, and they put it up on the wall. What a desecration. The Torah is not meant to be sprawled out. The Torah is always meant to be kept covered, kept in a dignified space. Because in Judaism, what we see is dignity is associated with an element of modesty. When an individual has so much to show off, there's an indication that they are lacking. When a person is able to hold their own and not need to flaunt and not need to show, it's an indication that there is a huge amount of substance within them. And that is the same that we're seeing for a woman. This energy flow, she's saying, I have so much that is flowing through me and so much blessing that I'm bringing into the world. I can't reveal this. This needs to be held in a modest space. This needs to be held in a dignified space. Now, you'll notice previously, we spoke about not only a woman uncovering her hair in public, but we saw that it had reference to her behavior in general. Now, Rav Berkovitz extrapolated this to the behavior of a male as well. And he said, tznius, modesty, has to do with dignity. If you behave in an undignified way, you are breaking this precept of dignity and you are breaking tznius. He gave one example, and I'm sorry to say this out loud because I know there are some in this audience that really enjoy such things, Jethro. So the space of taking, if you made cookie dough, and this is the example that Berkovitz brought, and taking a spoon that you've just mixed the cookie dough and then now licking that spoon. Okay, I know you're getting upset. He said was immodest. He said it's an undignified way to behave. It's not a dignified way to behave. Okay, now take it or leave it in terms of that space. So what is defined as dignified? Many individuals would not drink straight from one of those big bottles. They would pour it out into a cup, and you see this in many circumstances. People are sensitive. Now today they sell smaller bottles, particularly made for that. Walking around while eating, all of these are energies of modesty. And the reason why I'm bringing you this is because it's broadening our understanding of these laws. These laws are not only about being triggered sexually. These laws are about preserving dignity. And much deeper than that, preserving an energy flow. Now I'm going to bring you now a very interesting halacha, where you see this transpires on many halachic spaces. So have a look at source number 9. This is the Pri Eitz Chaim. The Pri Eitz Chaim brings here a custom of certain Hasidim not to cut their hair during the entire Sfiras HaOmer. Now, for some individuals, they wait, till Lag BaOmer and then they cut their hair. Some have different customs of when they wait and they cut their hair. Some have the custom of not cutting their hair the entire time. Now, why? We know that it says that the students of Rabbi Akiva only died and the plague only existed for 33 days. So what's this whole space that now they're keeping this mourning period for the entirety and the entire duration from Pesach till Shavuos? Why aren't they cutting their hair? And listen to what the Eitz Chaim says. The time of the Omer is a time of din. What's din mean? We have dina here. What's din mean? Judgment. Means an energy of judgment. Which means, what does judgment mean? Judgment means the flow. That's what judgment means. When I judge something, it's my engagement with that entity and how I'm engaging with it. Judgment literally means how are things flowing into the world. Yom Hadin. When is Yom Hadin? Rosh Hashanah is the day of judgment. Now, people don't recognize, not the day of judgment, it's the day of resonance. Yom Teruah is the day of resonance. Now, you are the receptacle for flow of energy into the world. Imagine someone comes to you, they say, listen, I've got this unbelievable truffle oil. Very expensive, delicious. It will transform your dish. Whenever you put a drop of this, you have no idea how much it'll transform. Come to me tomorrow and let's see, I'll pour some out for you. I've got a lot. Now, I only have a few hours I can do this. You rock up with a little shot glass. That's your day of judgment, buddy. How much truffle sauce or truffle oil you're getting, that's your day of judgment. You come there with a vat. Cool, that's your day of judgment. How big you are as a vessel is your day of judgment. That is what it means to be a time of judgment. And the time frame from Pesach to Shavuos is a flow. Now, where's everything flowing through? Your hair. It's a time of judgment. Now, when things are being judged, imagine you're in the middle of a court case and the judge is like thinking he's about to give you the decree. You don't start saying to him, it's going to mess the judgment up. That's why, parenthetically, you're not meant to be learning Chumash at night. You're not meant to say Tehillim at night. You know why? Because it's a time of judgment. And you don't want to mess with the judgment, and especially learning the written Torah and saying Tehillim starts to dig your fingers into the judgment. You don't want to get electrocuted, and you don't want to mess the flow of that energy. That's why some people have a custom not to get their hair cut at night. That's why some people have a custom of another day of judgment not to get a haircut. You know when that is? Rosh Hashanah, Rosh Chodesh. Please don't cut your hair on Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Chodesh. Rosh Chodesh, the head of the month, is a time of judgment. That's why they don't cut their hair. But one thing's for sure that the Pri Etz Chaim is saying here is that the time frame from Pesach to Shavuos is a time of judgment. So that's why we don't cut our hair. And any time there is a space of judgment, be it negative, where you see on the 9 days and 3 weeks, we don't touch the hair. People think it's a sign of mourning. It's a sign of not messing with judgment. You don't want to start messing around with the pipe system when there's a flow of energy going through there. You want to leave it. And that's what we're seeing here, that this space of not cutting hair during the Omer. Now look at the Ben Yehuda. I'm going to conclude with this. As we said, I did mix the Shut Roiv Hapalim. I think it's quite an important one just before we conclude with the Ben Yehuda. Go to source number 8. Listen to what he says here, because you might come along and say, come on, like, great, you're telling me that hair is this flow, it's this pipeline of energy into the world. If that's the case, why do men not cover their hair? Why do men not cover their hair? Now, there were certain men that covered their hair. The Baba Sali, for example, would cover his hair with a hood, put a hood, a special hood over. There are many individuals that are particular to always wear a hat and keep their head covered. We're going to see a lot of that. We know, interestingly, the custom of an individual when they get married is to put the talus over their head. When is the flow of energy coming into their life? While they're davening. So when do they need to cover their head? Clearly, while they're davening. But listen to what the Rav Palim says here. This is the Ben Ish Chai in his Chuvas. So men represent an energy of raw potential, which is referred to as chasadim. From the word chesed, men are raw potential, raw energy. And women are an energy of judgment, meaning, what did we say judgment was? Not that your wife's going to scream at you for leaving your socks out. Judgment is a grounding of potential into this world. That's what women are. They are the nexus of the spiritual world into the physical world. Only women can bring life into this world. A man, as much as he tries, cannot fall pregnant. I'm sorry, Philip. I know you've tried. There is no way. No way. Only a woman can bring that potential into the world because she is an energy of judgment. But at the same time, only a man can create the potential for that energy flow into the world because he is the energy of chesed. Now he writes here, "Fine, Mashakos of Gamgin Meshar Time and Mitzvahs Atam Shena Isha Megalechetz Roisha." Sure. Now, show this to certain sects in Judaism, and let's see what they say. But he says, according to Kabbalah, it's funny because certain sects take this particular Zohar to heart and make certain women shave their hair because they don't want the walls of their house to ever see their hair. Now, the Ben Ish Chai is saying you sort of lost the plot. Because the whole purpose of the hair is a flow of energy into this world. Yes, it has to be hidden. You don't destroy the whole infrastructure. Yes, you cover the power station. You're not going to blow it up. This is the flow of energy into the world. So he says this is the reason why a woman is not allowed to shave her hair, because she is the flow of energy into this world. Hectic statement. All judgment and root systems are found in the hair of your wife. So next time, be a little bit more careful. Yeah, when we deal with the hair, but we understand that there's some hectic energy flow transpiring in that space. It's interesting, and I mentioned over Shavuos, why hair on the head, so beautiful, so exquisite. As soon as you see hair detached from the head, it's disgusting. You see it in your food. Ugh, that's one of the worst things to experience. Oh, the hair, a strand of hair. Get over yourself. It's a strand of hair. What's the big deal? There's something inside of us that we feel like there's a detached energy there, and it feels like death. That's what it feels like. Why does it feel so bad? It feels like death, because there's a detached energy flow. Now, to conclude, we're going to see the Ben Yoada, who's going to speak about why men have to cover their hair with a kippah. Are you ready? Okay. Kisui Reisheich. Any questions so far? Kisui Reisheich. The covering of one's head. Ki heichidis have Allah a masdishmaya. It says, and this is a teaching from the Gemara in Shabbos, which we're going to conclude with Ben Ish Chai's Perush on this Gemara. And it says that the covering of one's head instills a consciousness and an awe and a reverence of the spiritual realm. Perush. Why? Kisui noisaf ala nahog kadesh lo izdame noi be'eza shah shie begilui roish legamre afilu rega. There's a custom to have one's head covered twice. Why? That we're very afraid that even for a moment, the hair is going to become uncovered, even for a moment. Now, this is all a story from a certain mother who was told that her son would have a very negative energy. And she said, no worries, I'm going to protect him by covering his head. And the story goes that he was sitting under a tree, learning Torah, steiging, always keeping the head covering, and a wind came and his head covering fell off. And it says that he looked up and he saw some delicious fruit, and he picked the fruit off the tree and he ate it. It wasn't his fruit, it belonged to someone else, and he stole it. So, strange story. You know, straight after your head was uncovered, now you're going to engage with some sinful behavior. Like, does one equal the other? So what we see here is, yes, it does. The reason why she particularly chose this as the skula to keep her son safe, listen to this Kabbalistic insight. If you understand what this meddling is, why is it that you have to cover your hair? Why is it that this flow of energy is so necessary to be covered? Why, just because it's uncovered and now is it going to attract these attacking forces? We're not talking about lice here. We're talking about spiritual defect. Why? So listen to what he says. According to Kabbalah, all negative energy and all spiritual husks have no source of energy of their own. Thus, they have no source from the Ora Makif. They have no source of energy, it says. They stand naked without any spiritual light. Besoida Kasav, where do we see this? It says in the Bereshis, in the Torah. V'anachash haya arum. It refers to the snake as naked, uncovered. Lechein, im roin adam aron begilui arosh, hem nidvokim enechazin boy bechashvam shudoim melehem. You know what they do? Immediately, when they see someone else uncovered, they get drawn to that person, thinking that they are like them. So that negative energy now associates with this individual and it draws to that person. And what the Ben Ish Chai explains is the reason why the rabbis sensitized us even more now to covering one's head, because remember, a kippah used to not be a requirement in ancient years. It only became a requirement after time. And it comes from this Gemara that the extra sensitivity is because there is extra chitzonim in the world, there is extra negative energy that is looking to attach to you. And the way that it finds who to attach to is by virtue of your nakedness and your uncoveredness. The kevan the shoytu to ba'avir hem yabitu baroish shub kenegdam yoser. Now, he says these energies, you know where they're found? They're found floating around because they're not grounded energies. Remember, all negative energy is energy that is dormant, that has got potential but has not been fulfilled. That's all negative energy is. So it floats around, seeing where to anchor itself. And it says, oh, look, there's a nice anchor right there. Now, we know that the Sitra Achra loves theft. To take something that isn't yours, it loves that energy. It loves it. Because you know why it loves it so much? Because what the Sitra Achra is trying to do is steal energy from you. All negativity in this world is trying to siphon negative energy from you. It's siphoning your attention. It's siphoning your emotion. It's siphoning your intellect. It's siphoning every energy force from you. And when a person seeks to steal from another, God forbid, it says that's a perfect entity for me to be born into, to take more energy from. Because it takes that person's kedusha. It says, who are the wicked? Those who steal. Gnave. That's why the mother chose the covering of the hair for her son to protect him from theft. Because it is looking for the same type of energy that the snake had of nakedness. Thus, when a person covers their head with a kippah, or a person covers their hair during davening, it's not just because it makes you look Jewish. Now I've got a nice Jewish identity. It's not that you can stand out from the crowd. It's there for a fundamental spiritual purpose to protect your energy and differentiate you from the chitzonim, from the negative forces that are looking to siphon spiritual energy. And it's not going to then have, it's almost like a protective measure. It's like this iron dome. Yeah, this is the real iron dome, is your kippah. The iron dome here is the protection from the chitzonim. Nearly the mina shemaim gilgulu davazeh shiskaber yitzroi kach kol kach alav kadesh leikoitz. And the reason why this whole story transpired for this kid, that abnormally the winds came and this head covering should fall off, was to reveal that this kid who kept on doing what his mother told him to cover his head, and one day was like, you know what, not important, let me get over it. Suddenly, he was hit with this energy. So my friends, whether you've been able to latch on or not, if there's one thing that you can take home, it's the understanding that, as we have through these series many times indicated, that Jewish law is not just random. It's not just like some nice, happy-go-lucky type of framework that gives you some cultural identity. It's not something that Hashem just says, you know what, you must do this in order to prove that you love. It is very, 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 very exact. It's very detailed, and it's very in tune with the metaphysical realm and how it flows into this world. Thus, we see the inextricable link between covering one's hair as a woman and the blessing of a home. That a husband will be able to get blessed above and below. Her children will be able to have importance in this world. There will be blessing and positive energy in the home. Same too for a male. We see that when they cover their head with a kippah, they are protecting themselves from the susceptibility to negative energy, especially during davening, where they are having a flow of energy in their lives. They want to separate all distraction. The Ben Ish Chai speaks very much about covering one's head with a talis, for the Shema, and especially for the Amidah, if those are the only times you can cover your head. But this is the story at hand. Thank you for joining us, and we'll conclude with any questions. What?
Have you got a question there?
I don't. No, no one online is asking.
Do you think that, well, by knowing the reasoning behind the sport, do you think it elevates it? Because some may see it as a sport, or it's just something.
Totally. I believe that to function today's day and age, just from the two-dimensional space of a chok, that it's just something you need to do, is very, very difficult to grasp. And from my own, experience in teaching and in myself, the more you understand the depth of what's transpiring, the more you recognize you don't know, and the happier you are to be able to engage with that space. But even the things that you're able to pick up of knowing, it gives you greater intentionality behind what you're doing, and it creates a deeper connection behind that space as well. Yeah, any other questions? Okie dokie. Thank you, my friends. Please, God should be with blessing for all of Am Yisrael, and we should be able to hone in deeper into the spaces at hand for our own opportunities and abilities to connect spiritually.